So, it's midweek of the third week of the campaign. We are essentially at the halfway mark, and I'd like to welcome back all of our listeners who sometimes call themselves cursors and sometimes call themselves the cursed. Either way, it's pretty good. We've got with us the spectacular Jenni Byrne and the outrageous Scott Reid and the low-energy Nick Taylor-Vasey.
Steady.
Hello.
Nick, welcome to you. How are you, brother?
Feeling good. Feeling excited. Today's a big day. Today's a big day. Tell us about your big day today. So, it's not just my big day, David. It's all of us. It's Canada. There's a liberal platform, so it matters to everybody. They're putting it at some point today, somewhere in Toronto, and us journalists in Ottawa are getting a chance to take a peek beforehand because how important is this document? It's so important that journalists must have time with it behind closed doors so that the moment it drops, we can have our stories fully written for the Canadian public. I'm
just excited to see the cover.
I'm excited to see the cover. I'm excited to count the number of pages. I'm excited to hopefully...
If I was in charge, it would be a topless picture of Aaron O'Toole. That's what I would put on the Liberal platform. Fill your boots, Canada.
But I'm actually just pumped to go to a thing with other journalists because the last time I did that was a couple of years ago. So sentimentally, it's actually kind of nice, go in there with a coffee, sit down, have a document to look at, and then come out and see the world. And I mean, it's not as long as a budget lockup, which lasts for a tremendous number of hours, but it's still, it's like a little bit of normalcy. So I'm pumped for it.
Nick, this isn't about you.
Well, sure it is. To me, it's about me. I want to be happy with my life.
Right. Do you have any idea what's going to be in this document? What's in this platform?
Well, I mean, they've rolled out a bunch of stuff. Over the past couple of weeks, I think what everyone's wondering is what's the big thing, because it wasn't so long ago that the CBC was reporting that they were still looking for that big thing. So no one knows what it is. At least I don't. But I'm going to find out in a couple hours.
Excellent. And where are the folks today?
So Trudeau is somewhere in Toronto. His itinerary has taken to extreme vagueness for protest disruption purposes, one assumes. And so he's somewhere in Toronto at some point. I would imagine this morning, where he will talk about this party platform. Aaron O'Toole is sticking to Ottawa. He's got a morning announcement and then nothing else. So maybe he and his folks are just going to be reading up on what the Liberals have to say. And Jagmeet Singh's in Montreal on the site for any Expos fans or maybe potential future Expos fans. He's on the site of the maybe where there was rumored to be or hoped to be a new pro baseball stadium. Those plans are shelved, but he's got a housing announcement just southwest of downtown Montreal today. And so
did Trudeau also promise and fail to deliver a baseball stadium? Is that why he's there?
Not that I know of, but this is the Laurentian elite day in Canadian politics because the leaders are in Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa. The triangle is back.
It never went away, Nick. Don't for 1 second think that it went away.
No, you can be away from Saskatchewan for a long time and know that never goes away. It doesn't matter. Thank you, Nick. Great roundup.
Thanks,
good to see you. And look back onto your insights into the platform tomorrow. See you tomorrow morning.
Right on. Talk soon, guys.
Well, Bloomberg reports that the platform has $50 billion more spending in it because the economy is growing faster than expected. Tax revenue is growing faster than expected. So there's $50 more billion to spend. Fun times.
I always hated Platform Day. Like, you know what I mean? Like, other than the day that we did the Red Book where we'd built up to it and I think we'd properly framed what it was going to be about and so forth. I always kind of hate Platform Day. It's New Year's Eve. It's like, oh, this is going to be the best and biggest party ever. And then it isn't. And then people go, well, how come this isn't here? And why isn't that there? And people go through and say, how many times did you mention the word, whatever, firemen or
Racism,
something.
for example.
Racism, like that literally happened, right? So to me, like Platform Day is try to pound away on a thematic and just get past it. I hate Platform Day.
Yeah, I agree with you. The only platform days that I really remember are the ones that go south. And that's like, those are the ones that are burned in your brain. And those are actually only the two that I remember are the two that we ran campaigns against each other. So you ruined my 2 platform days in those campaigns.
Well, hey, our platform got leaked in 0506, and we had to endure a daily drip with the Canadian press. Joan Bryan would write a story every day where whoever had our platform would provide her with one plank the minutes before we were going to announce it. It was a wondrous experience.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's correct. Hey.
Yeah, because I think I do.
Anybody interested in what Frankie has to say today?
Yes.
Yeah.
Frankie has to say that the bounce back appears to have stopped. 36, this is the 4-day roll-up. 36 Conservative, 31 Liberal, 18 NDP, 3 Green, 5 People's Party, and since somebody asked yesterday, 5 for the Bloc Québécois. The 3-day Ontario is a 5-point Liberal lead over the Conservatives. The 3-day roll-up, which you might expect to be more responsive to recent dynamics in the campaign, says Conservatives 36, Liberals 31, NDP 19. So it looks like a big Conservative lead out west and a small Liberal lead in Ontario is what we're settled in with. Any thoughts on that, folks?
Well, if those numbers are accurate, it kind of puts us like where the election will put us kind of where we started.
Right. Although the Conservative lead is bigger than what it ended up being. What did the Conservatives win the popular vote by? 2 points?
3 points.
3 points? Okay. Right. So I have an announcement to make. I have the Curse of Politics decision desk has an announcement to make, and that announcement is that we are witnessing the first progressive Conservative campaign since 2000. That this is the first campaign under the Conservative Party of Canada where they have run effectively on the message, we are actually no different from the Liberals except a little bit better economic managers. But don't look for any different worldview. Don't look for any different distinction. I mean, what I see out of the O'Toole campaign is an attempt to basically reassure people on everything, up to and including his announcement yesterday about deficits. And don't worry about me and cutting. I've got no intention to cut anything.
And the budget will balance itself.
And the budget will balance itself. Apparently was an object of ridicule. I mean, you couldn't, to be serious, in that exact line, you couldn't find a stronger differentiation between the campaign Stephen Harper ran and the campaign that Erin O'Toole is running.
Well, I remember being a young reformer in Ottawa and talking to someone in the PC party that to your point about PCs and Liberals saying you guys just don't understand. Every few years we just it's the blue shirts team. So it's the red shirt, it's the blue shirt. We just take turns, but nothing really changes, which just reinforced the reason why I was a member of the Reform Party and not a member of the PC party. I think that you see Frank's numbers have the PPC at 5, and I think that you've seen the PPC rising in other polls. I think Nano's had them up yesterday as well. So I think this is going to be a challenge, especially if the Liberals have a 5-point lead in Ontario. If the PPC regardless of what the Liberals want to, regardless of what Trudeau's trying to make it, people that are looking towards the PPC, I think they're not anti-vaxxers. They're not people. One of the 20 people that are protesting Justin Trudeau. They're people that are looking for a difference between the Conservatives and the Liberals.
So do you think, Jenni, to follow up on that, do you think, Jenni, that he might face a turnout problem or an enthusiasm gap or something with his own voters?
Yeah, I've been saying that since the start. I think that there has to be a compelling reason to get conservatives out. And when conservatives don't come out to vote, that's a problem. Tim Hudak's both campaigns, I would say that's a problem, especially in 2014. Conservatives just were not compelled to come out and vote, and so the Ontario PC Party saw it with John Tory in spades with both the 2007 campaign and then when he tried to win my home riding of Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock. So I think that this is going to be a challenge for the O'Toole campaign, because there is nothing. There literally, as you said, there's no daylight between the two right now.
Scott, what do you think of this approach?
By and large, I like it. It is a pick your poison problem for the Conservatives. So if you want to run this kind of neutralizing, blunting strategy, which I think is what we're for sure seeing, and I think there's a lot of wisdom in that, particularly after, you've seen at least one election and arguably two where people were saying, I don't know, man, I'm a little anxious. 2015 was obviously just a full-fledged, full-throated change election, but I think for the Conservatives saying, we're going to take some of those edges off. We're going to try to make ourselves more marketable. We still see they're according to Frank, 5 points behind in Ontario, so there's more work to do. But I think it's got to be at least a two-part punch. Like, I don't think it can be just I don't think you can try to blunt those hard edges, get people to say, well, maybe I'm not as resistant to the Conservative Party.
Scott, can I just ask a question? When was the last time a Conservative government federally has won on this approach?
Well, I don't know that that's a fair test, though, because
it is a fair point. When is the last time a Conservative government? When is the last time a Conservative Party has won by trying to mirror the Liberal Party of Canada? Well,
the Conservative Party exploded, though, right? So that's why I say
we didn't explode. We merged and then governed for 10 years. Remember that. So I'm asking
you answer then.
to put yourself in to contextualize your comments that this is a smart move for Erin O'Toole. I am asking you, why is it a smart move? When has this worked?
Well, it occasionally worked under PC parties.
When though? When was the last time it worked?
Well, I would say 84. To be honest, Mulroney was pretty anxious for people to think of the Conservatives really only as different from the Liberals on... But
it was a bit of a change. It was a bit change election too. Like, despite Joe Clark's 9 months, it was... How long had you guys been in power for at that point?
16 years.
Yeah.
Long time.
I just wanted to ask...
Actually, 21. Trudeau had been in power for 21 years since the start of Pearson, by the time Mulroney won.
Well, what I was trying to say was that it's a difficult question to apply because the Conservative Party, the Progressive Conservative Party, hasn't existed since '88. Really, I guess it persisted in '93, '92. It blew up with the Reform Party movement, all of which for a bunch of reasons, and the Bloc movement. But I think it's been harder for the modern Conservative Party to ever even consider that playbook. Let's neutralize, let's blunt, let's run ourselves. The Progressive Conservative Party, it was always a rational play. Let's wait for time for a change, then convince people that we're not threatening and we're not that different, and we'll get in. And I think that's what you saw of the rhythm over decades, to be honest. It wasn't a particularly satisfying recipe for the Conservatives, because it's actually what your fellow that you met in the late 80s was saying, right? It meant that they got one out of every 5 elections or so. But I just think, now we've had the modern Conservative Party in place for a number of years, lost the last election. And I think the blunting, neutralizing strategy has some wisdom to it in terms of saying, no, let's try to give people a greater sense of comfort in Ontario. But the two punch play that I'm talking about was, I think you can do that to have people not be freaked out. But then you're going to have to come with some sort of affirmative reason for people to say, yeah, but I do actually prefer you. Like, I don't think this is a change election. So I don't think you can just count on, as long as we don't rock the boat, people will gravitate to us because they're so mad at the government. It's not quite there. Like, maybe one more election cycle, just, on the basis of calendar, but I don't think it's quite there. So I think the O'Toole and those guys they're going to have to They're going to have to win the last 3 weeks in order to win the election.
You keep talking about the modern conservative movement having a problem. You did forget we governed for a decade. And we governed for an entire decade of the last 20 years.
Let me throw one factoid in, though. Because I think this is interesting, and people, I think, forget about this. The PC Party regularly stomped the Liberal Party in English Canada. Liberal Party won elections because it was sweeping Quebec. But in elections, the Conservatives lost. Like, take Joe Clark in 1980. He kicked Trudeau from one end of English Canada to the other, but he lost every seat in Quebec. And that was the difference. So back in those days, the reason the Conservatives couldn't win wasn't because they couldn't win in Ontario. It was because they couldn't win at all in Quebec, and nobody else was stopping the Liberals from winning anything in Quebec. We're in the thick of this election, which means 99.999% of you hurly-burlyites are getting your fix of news and digital information with more alacrity than ever. I mean, if we're 10 minutes late getting the curse up, my phone starts pinging with your increasingly desperate texts and tweets. Guys, it makes me feel warm all over. Not every Canadian can afford that kind of digital access, though. Our presenting sponsor, TELUS, knows it, and they're committed to making the situation better, which is why in 2020, TELUS expanded the reach of their Mobility for Good program and launched TELUS Mobility for Good for seniors. It provides seniors who receive the Guaranteed Income Supplement access to discounted devices and subsidized mobility rate plans, so they can stay connected to loved ones, important healthcare tools and information, and just to be entertained by and share the stuff the internet provides. Specifically, TELUS Mobility for Good for seniors is a discounted refurbished smartphone, unlimited talk and text, and 3 gigabytes of data for only $25 a month. It's no small gesture. Across Canada, 2.2 million seniors are eligible for the program. And it's more than the dollars and cents of it. The heart of this is about really connecting. Access to digital technology and what it provides has been proven to help seniors fight feelings of isolation, contributing to their mental well-being. Nothing beats being there in person, but suddenly friends and family aren't miles away, they're just a couple of clicks away. I don't have to tell you how important that was during lockdown. You can learn more about it all at telus.com/connectingcanada. The Liberals are going to try to pick away at this. Where do you think the weakest ground is for O'Toole? Where do you think he's most vulnerable on I'm a moderate?
Well, I think what I said, that if there is no, it's kind of what I said yesterday. If there is no compelling reason, if there is nothing you're putting in the window for people to vote for, and you're exactly the same as the other guy, it becomes a little bit, I'd rather stay with the devil I know than the devil I don't. And so they need something compelling that is different than what the Liberal Party is. And right now, the only thing that really kind of significance that comes up in terms of their plans is childcare. And we have talked about numerous times, it's not really a vote driver. Right.
I strongly suspect they'll have something new in this platform that we hadn't.
I have to.
Any predictions? Any predictions, guys?
Sure. Maybe something economic. They've got they really have been quite quiet on the economic front, the Liberals, but I also think they might, you would expect that they would have a new nugget in order to drive the news. But the other way of looking at it is that this finally is the opportunity for them to say, okay, this is what this election's about, and this is what the big contrast and fight will be about, in the sense that they didn't do that on launch day, and they've not succeeded in doing it since. I know that we've talked about it a lot in the last couple of days, but I think that scrap in Sudbury last night between Trudeau and the protesters, whether people think it's contrived or whether people thought it was fantastic drama, I thought it was the sharpest, most passionate articulation of why we're having this campaign and what the differences are, and I thought that made sense for Trudeau, and to try to tie O'Toole to that. And I wonder if we'll see more of that with Ford trying to introduce a passport today, but it's been a kind of a clusterfuck for the last 2-3 days of where they stand. The interesting thing about last night's speech by Trudeau, I think, is it raises your question, and I think about this all the time, David. I think about this in my work. I think about this in politics. In 1968, when his dad had the big Saint Jean Baptiste rally and he stood there with the bottles and he challenged the crowd, it was something that everybody saw reported. It was something that everybody talked about. That Sudbury rally last night, it shows up on Twitter. Some reporters talk about it. But then we're talking about Afghanistan. We're talking about vaccine passport, whether or not it happens in Ontario. So it's kind of like if a defining moment falls in the forest, but there's no goddamn fucking reporters around to broadcast it, does a defining moment occur? And so I wonder if they try to resummon last night's speech by way of platform packaging today.
I really think I'm with those people who say that Trudeau is performing better. I'm with people who say that he looked strong and passionate last night. And I think the protesters have helped him find his campaigning legs and given him some sort of purpose behind what he's doing out there. I do not think that message is going to carry him through the stretch. For
not
2.5 weeks.
I agree with that.
It is not. He's just got to use this moment as an opportunity to have gotten back up off the mat and now bring forward a message that will carry him through the stretch run. And that's what I'm looking to this platform for. Exactly what you said. Finally answer the question that is the core cancer at the heart of your campaign, which is what's the election about? And why do you want this mandate? I think more than one single idea. Yeah?
No, sorry. Finish that point. I want to say something at the end of it.
Can't even remember. It's too early in the morning. Can't even remember what my point was.
Well, I wanted to say something to Jenny because, Jenny, you are always preaching, goddamn polls and people who sit in bars talking their mouths off. Don't listen to them. Listen to the doors. Go to the doors. So I went out in Eglinton Lawrence, and I know Eglinton Lawrence is Eglinton Lawrence, but went door knocking in conservative polls last night, which I thought was really interesting. And just to your point, David, we ran into three kinds of people. Kids, I took my 12-year-old and my 8-year-old. It was hysterical, right? And they were like, wow, And other than the people who didn't answer the door and all that kind of stuff, we ran into women over the age of 50 who said, yeah, for sure I'm there, but I can't take a lawn sign, so please get the fuck out of here before anybody sees me talking to you, okay? We saw a bunch of guys my age who said, yeah, don't even bother coming down the pike. And then we ran into people who I suspect voted Liberal in the last two elections. And we ran into a number of them who said, and this is the way they put it, I'm still pissed off that we're in an election. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. Do you just wait for time to it's like, well, it's inevitable and that, and people overcome that? Or do you have to, as you're saying, and I've been saying, do you have to address it and give people a reason to say, all right, I heard what he said there, so I'm going to get past this. But it's interesting. You heard it at the doors last night. Still, whatever it is, 2 weeks in, you heard it at the doors.
Nobody who's excited about voting for a candidate is mad that there's an election. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's your issue right there. Jenny?
Yes?
Is Trudeau going to get away with this candidate, this MP?
He shouldn't. He shouldn't.
Why do they think they can?
Could you imagine if we were sitting here and a conservative leader defended a candidate who had multiple sexual harassment complaints given that were complained that went to the PMO, where you have a report where one of his young staffers tried to kill herself in his constituency office. You wouldn't have even started talking about campaign. You would have been like, fuck Frank's numbers. Let's talk about how the Conservatives are not being responsive to this. And so this is the hypocrisy. This is the Trudeau hypocrisy. So we're going to go after, we're going to stand up at a rally and talk about those people. But I'm not polarizing things. I'm going to talk about those people all in while you are letting a guy who had multiple complaints over 6 years continue to run. I think it's disgusting, and I think it's hypocrisy, and I think that it's the core of the reason that Trudeau might find himself in trouble, because at his core, he's a fucking hypocrite.
It's so weird. What would Kent Hare think of this?
I don't know. You guys are the Liberals. You tell me.
I don't know. I'm puzzled by it too. I don't know why. Trudeau's shown himself to be entirely capable of being steely-eyed and ruthless and just say, sorry, right? You're an obstacle or a potential obstacle, so it's curtains. So I don't know why they didn't act in the days prior to the filing deadline. I don't know what. I don't know what the context could be. I don't know what context could be affecting their thinking on it, because on the face value, you would say this is just not a risk worth dragging around.
Well, and it was obvious, like it was obvious that they knew about it because it was an extensive CBC story. Like this wasn't a drop. Like this wasn't a gotcha moment.
Well, the astonishing incident to which you make reference means that it's impossible people weren't aware of it. Someone tries to take their life. A staffer tries to take their life. Like that's a deal.
Do you think it's going to go away, Scott, or do you think it dogs them?
I don't really think it's going to dog them. I think this kind of gets back. I mean, these things. I generally think that this stuff, you can argue very forcefully this is evidence of Trudeau's hypocrisy in the way that Jenni just did, and at the same time, you can argue that people give Trudeau a pass on these things. Like it's now that's true until it isn't true, like, I don't know, like at some point when you're 14 years in government or something, people, there's just at some point one chink is too many and the arrow gets through the armor. But if I was going to be honest with you, my gut is that this won't dog him in the way that you're suggesting. Or that, yeah.
Well, as Jenni says, that's a double standard for sure.
That's what I'm saying. That we've learned that over time, that there is a double standard that he benefits from. But the thing about those double standards is that, like I say, they do, at some point they evaporate.
No, but people don't see it coming. People let him away with it. The media let him away with it. Like I had TV on all day while I was working, and I know for a fact, having sat through elections and dealing with candidate eruptions, nothing quite like this, but dealing with candidate eruptions, it's like ongoing. And Afghanistan was still an issue. Biden spoke yesterday afternoon, and it was, the end of the war. Like I get it. There were other issues, but nothing covered in Canadian politics. I truly believe if it was us, it would have been literally wall to wall coverage.
CBC News World had that story on a loop. It's tough to hear, actually.
Mm-hmm. Sunny ways, guys. Sunny ways.
Since Confederation, owning a home has been part of the Canadian dream. For most people, that dream is much more than just a monthly mortgage payment. A home is where we create our fondest memories and where we can truly be ourselves. For too many, especially young adults, that reality is out of reach, and it's getting worse. The good news is our original sponsor, the Ontario Real Estate Association, or REA for short, has a plan to save the Canadian dream of home ownership. It includes lowering costs for first-time buyers, ending money laundering in the real estate market, and cutting years of red tape that is standing in the way of more affordable homes for families. The REA plan will lay the foundation for a future where all people can find a place to call home. When we support the dreams of all of us who want to own a home, we're building healthier families, stronger communities, and a safer, more secure future for all. Read their plan at orea.com/affordable homes. So Jenni Byrne, campaign manager, tell me what happens when the campaign manager watches an event like the NDP had in Manitoba, where those two chiefs came up and endorsed the Liberal candidate in front of Singh, standing there.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, that was that's a fucking train wreck. Like that is a stomping through the war room to find like tour, to find stakeholders, to find scripting. Like that is because I'll be honest, there were a lot of times I didn't watch the leaders. I didn't watch the PM's remarks. Someone would yell, the questions are on. So I'd come and obviously watch that. But when you're into an event, you've already read the speech that he's about to give. If it's a stump, you fucking could recite it in your brain. So that would have been an absolute like clusterfuck. And it's on the outside. It's a big deal, but it's not a big deal. But I bet you the war room is captivated by this. Like internally, this would be the biggest thing happening yesterday or the day before, and it would be all consuming. I assume there were meetings held. There were swearing, all of that kind of stuff.
Scott, you would have been standing beside the leader while that happened on the campaign trail.
Yeah.
What a feeling.
Yeah, what a feeling. And that's what I was thinking about too.
And can you imagine getting that if you're on tour with them, on the bus with the leader after something like
Paul
that
would have been Paul would have been freaking
I wouldn't have gone.
out.
I could have been entirely innocent of responsibility for the event, and I would have latched myself to the back of the bus on the outside. There's no way I would have gone on that bus. Right? He would have uprooted that bolted down chair and slammed me with it. It would be so. I'd be like, my last words were, "But it wasn't my fault. I didn't have anything to do with it. God is my witness." Yeah, it's just so, and it's the. You know what? Actually, you guys are making me think. I want to go back and look at the event because I want to see the look on Singh's face because that's the
no, it's classic. You got to watch them.
You're like, oh, no, it's for fuck's sake.
All right, you know what? Time flies. This was fun today. Who's got a curse?
You go first, Scott.
My curse is Doug Ford, and I'm not even putting in the context of the federal election and trying to tie the vaccine passport thing into it. I'm just pissed off as like a citizen of Ontario. Like, we're having a discussion about whether or not to have vaccine passports. He's been saying no for a long time. It's an active discussion. We have other provinces coming forward with precedents, how to make them work, what they should include, and the kind of like just Muppet movie fucking cabinet situation that he permits to occur. So they take it to cabinet, they pre-signal this is going to happen. Then they have a cabinet discussion that goes off the wires, off the rails because people don't agree. So then he pulls it back. Now they're having another cabinet discussion last night. We're going to get something today. Like, is it going to be a full-fledged thing? Is it some half-ass sawed off? Because, I got two cabinet ministers who don't like. What kind of a leader are you? Look at your cabinet and go, I've decided to do this. Now shut the fuck up and go to the microphones and say you're for it. Like, I don't understand. So my curse of the day is to Ford.
Never seen a government that works like that.
Because we know that every media report of what happens in cabinet is accurate.
I don't know. Yeah. We've seen lots of instances for this government.
It must have been for your government. Every leak that came out must have been 100% accurate to what people were saying.
Sadly, they almost always were.
Well, my curse of the day is just to kind of all parties. This has been a absolute, I feel, clusterfuck of a campaign for all of them. I think Singh has run a good campaign. I think Aaron has been solid, policy aside. Trudeau looks, I think, deranged every day. He still has not gotten that Trudeau look, the swagger that he had. I know you guys think he might have had a better day yesterday. He looked, if you turned the sound off, he looked fucking sweaty and flailing his arms about. And so, we're getting into 2.5 weeks left. I want all of these guys to show Canadians why they should be elected Prime Minister.
Yeah, excellent. And my curse goes out to the Liberal campaign just because it's Wednesday and there's not a lot else going on. I saw that fucking ad on the National last night. I am begging you. So, all right, that is it for today's Curse of Politics. Jenni and Scott, thank you so much for being here at such an early hour of the morning. It's fun for me. It's really fun for me to talk to you guys, so thank you. Thanks to the cursed or the cursers for listening or watching today. Thank you to our presenting sponsor, TELUS, and to our sponsor, the Ontario Real Estate Association. Thank you, obviously, to EKOS for their data, and to Politico and Nick Taylor-Vasey for adding to the fun here on this morning. And we will see you tomorrow morning, which I think will be Thursday. Till then.